Okay, we're into the second hour of the Phatt, and that normally means that you're sick of us talking about just the rubbish that we talk about for the first hour. So we tend to bring in some of the people in Bendigo who are doing some great work to support their community. And today we're joined with Elsie, who is from the Bendigo Share and Repair shed. Elsie, welcome to the Phatt.
Thanks, Brett. Good morning.
Good morning. Keith normally gives me a good morning in, where were we today?
New Zealand.
Maori language. Yeah, so I get all different. Have you got a different language you could give me a good morning in today?
Dobro dan.
Oh, well done. There you go, Keith.
Excellent.
Now,
That's
Keith,
Russian, was it? No?
Yeah. Yes, I think that might actually be good afternoon, but Dobro dan, yes, but anyway.
well, it might be afternoon in Russia.
I knew that.
Well, that was very impressive because I know it takes Keith hours to practice that each week and get it right. And you just off the cuff with didn't give you any warning.
Well
but
done.
welcome to, as I said, welcome to the Phatt and back to Phoenix FM. Sounds like you were here quite a while ago.
Oh, look, I've always been interested in it. I haven't actually been involved, but yes, I've sort of just worked with the people that have been working with it more than anything else and supporting it.
Mm.
Yep.
Well, that's what makes it all work. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. So we need supporters like you, Elsie. So as well as supporting Phoenix FM, you also do some great work for the Bendigo Share and Repair shed. Tell us a little bit about what the shed's about.
Well, look, the shed is a pretty exciting place. We've been where we are now opposite Gillies Pie Factory in Garsted Street for a bit over a year. But we started out as a repair cafe. I don't know whether I'm hoping a few people out there will have heard of them and even heard of us. But we started the Bendigo Repair Cafe 7 years ago. And that was at the Good Life. We were just once a month for a few hours on a Saturday, and we were part of it's an international movement. It founded 15 years ago. It's its anniversary in October this year in the Netherlands, and it was just a casual thing of how most community things get going, as people out there who are in community groups would know. It's you get a couple of people together with an idea, and a couple more think it's a good idea, and hence like this radio station, it happens, and if it if it's good for community, it keeps going like this has. So we started with a few people that were interested in the model from that we had adopted as part of the international movement. It was just based on people getting together who knew how to fix things, like fixing things. Tinkerers, they're called. I think we call them bush mechanics here.
Yeah, okay.
And we know we've got lots of them. And,
yeah.
And so getting together with people who had broken things in the community. And they called it a cafe. It's a bit more of a European thing. I think they sort of meetings, even political meetings, used to happen in cafes. So whilst it's not actually a cafe, although we are working on having that sort of happening a bit more where we are. But so they're called repair cafes. There's, I think, 2,500 maybe around the world now.
Wow.
So we were one of the early ones, not the first in Australia, but so we did that for 6 years, and a great team built of about 12 people, volunteers, who were really very passionate about it, and tend to divide up between general fixers who are men and textile fixers who are women, which there's a little bit of crossover there, but mainly that's how it rolls. So, and the general fixers do anything from toasters, vacuum cleaners, computers. In fact, almost anything we'd say, if you can bring it in, we'd have a go at fixing it, and have got a pretty good strike rate on that. And then the textiles, mainly sewing repairs. But so anyway, we did that for 6 years, and we then, like you, many years ago, didn't have a home, so everything we had was in a filing cabinet, and we started to think about the idea of perhaps having somewhere regular. By then we were out at Peppergreen Farm, and there wasn't really room for us to set up there permanently, but we got some funding from Sustainability Victoria, which we were very grateful for, and that was we said we'd set up a tool library as well. So that's what we got the funding for, really, but that was going to enable us to get a building, or a room at least. But at the same time, council were working on what they call their circular economy hub. There's a guy called Scott Bryant from council who was pretty passionate about all of that, and we were working with him, and he could see a vision of how we could put together quite a few things and sort of meet some of those things that council were trying to achieve about a community-based approach to recycling and essentially keeping things out of landfill. That's how we measure our success, and that's what the repair cafes are about too. So we weigh everything that comes in. But anyway, out of that discussions with Scott and others in council, we ended up being able to tender to set up a circular economy hub with other facilities, and got support with some funding for a lease, and are now at 120 Garsed Street, Bendigo. So when we got there, we were in the process of setting up the tool library, because that was part of our Sustainability Vic funding. Now, that's based on the idea that, a lot of people have downsized or just don't want to be buying, I think the average life of a drill is 18 minutes or something, Everyone wants to have one, but you rarely use them. So that model too is, library of things. It's been around a long time. But so it's also kitchen things, like dehydrators or things to make sauce with, camping equipment. So the tool library has been established along with the repair cafe, which is still an important part of the shed. And we've also, I don't know whether you want to ask me questions or whether you want to keep me rolling here. But
you keep rolling.
Keep rolling.
You're on fire.
Now, if you both disappear to go and get a coffee, I'll get really worried. Anyway, so since we've been there, so there's a lot of people involved, and it's been, I think the whole 12 people that were involved in the repair cafe are still involved with the shed. And I won't name all of them, but my colleague Ros Effenberg has been very influential in getting up a whole lot of new things since we've been there. So will mention her input, because we've got what we call a useful bin now, which is quite huge. I don't know if people remember, but there was something called the bin in Bendigo a few years ago, quite a few, but where someone used to pick up stuff and take it to schools and things. And there's also was, I think, the useful bin on Play School or something. But so the idea is that people can bring in almost anything that's still of use, like egg cartons, newspapers, plastic dishes that can be reused. And obviously people can come in and get them. So aimed a bit at craft type things, but also, and so schools, kindergartens, and that's a big part of what we do now. So people bring that stuff in, we sort it, it's all organised, and people can come in and for a donation get anything they might need from there. We've also got the food is free, which allows people to bring in stuff from their garden that is extra and swap that, or just leave it, or come in and get what they need. And we're doing some of this specialist recycling, so the sort of things you can't put in the yellow bin, blister packs, but we're just not doing a lot of that, because we're also working closely with all the other groups around town that are doing similar sort of work. So closely involved with the Eagle Hawk Eco Recycle Centre, and also we're not an op shop, so we don't want to duplicate what they do. But when people bring stuff in, we try to accommodate it. So the recycling we do, and then out of the textile work mainly, we started to make things and started to upcycle clothing and make things. We had a lot of really good textiles donated, and we've got some very artistic fixers who are also artists and menders, and so started making things. And just before, in December last year, we opened up a little shop. So it's a clothing and gift shop. They're all things that are made by our own artists locally, and all made from things donated locally, and really good quality material, and upcycled denim jackets and things that are actually quite popular now, and selling for high prices in other places. But so that's another arm of it. And we've got setting up maker spaces, which we've got a lot of sewing machines now and a lot of equipment, so we'll hire out the space. People come in and do their own work on their own things. And as I said, we hope to have that coffee shop going soon too.
Yeah. So more arms than an octopus.
Yes. So at the moment, you're a volunteer-run organisation.
Yes. Now we've formed a cooperative, and I think if people are interested, that just to explain a bit about that, because part of my work over the years, a lot of it has been about setting up organisations and community governance, and I'm really interested in what doesn't work, because we've all learnt from that, and what makes it hard. And the model that is becoming very popular around the world, and that gives a different approach, is to use a cooperatives base, because the not-for-profit boards are really based on corporate boards and corporate businesses. They don't really suit community when you do the analysis. And what happens is, usually the board, even if it doesn't want to become elitist, it's very hard for it not to become something separate, and it doesn't really represent the people, and you lose sight of your goals a bit. So we've set up a cooperative, and it's a non-distributing, non-profit sharing, which is essentially the same as a not-for-profit in that sense, but it's owned by the workers, and it gives us a lot more capacity to operate as a business. So we've set that up, and that's just recently been approved. And the volunteers, you need to be a volunteer to be to join the co-op, and to. So we're pretty interested in how we run the place. That we're trying to be very mindful of it running in a way that has maximum involvement. And look, I think, like I understand this place does, I think over the years it seems to me this place survives by the people who actually, the volunteers who do the work, actually are the ones that have created it and keep it going. So we're similar. Yeah.
Well, and so if people want to do things like borrow a tool, so there's a fee for that.
That we do have a fee for that, and mainly because, as people would realise, the cost of software to set those sort of things up is pretty big. But the membership is it's $80 for a single member, $60 for concession, and $100 for a couple. I think I've got that right. I hope I have. And the couple thing is mainly because of insurance. We have to, if one person has their name on it, and if two people are going to use the thing, we need to have both names. And we've got a pretty good website that we're starting to. We haven't really done a lot of marketing yet because we wanted to get it all running pretty smoothly. But you can go online. It's Bendigo Share and Repair Shed.org, and through the website you can join the tool library. You can also come in. That's one thing that we pay for. Oh, you've opened it up. Very good.
Yes.
Very good. Yeah.
I've been browsing it while you're talking.
Been doing your journalistic research, haven't you?
Yes. Well, I'd had a bit of a look at it, but look, it's very interesting. The information that you have there is fantastic. Also, see you're on Facebook, so
and that's been one of our main. Well, the main way of getting engagement to date. But we are now ready to sort of do a bit more promotion. So, Well, because we want the space to be used. It's a very big space. So we're also looking at people being able to come in and have events there and learn about recycling and, sort of have a chance to find out what we're doing, but also use the space for other things.
From the initial 12 that you started out with, how many now have you got?
I think there's about 40 now.
Okay. Yeah, great.
And like a great sense of ownership. We're really lucky in the sense that it's an idea for its time. I think a lot of people. I remember a few years ago talking to someone who, she'd sort of felt like she was sitting at home, a young mother, and just really stressing and worrying about the world and her children and what they'd grow up in. And she actually got involved with Boomerang Bags, that group who were doing sewing. And she said just the difference it made to her to feel like she could do something.
Contribute,
so that's what we're about, and the people that are there, that most of them, that's how they're feeling, like, well, you know, the world's looking like it might be going to hell in a handbasket, but let's take the next step and we'll start doing things, you know. So it's a really good, you know, a lot of friendship there, good feeling.
Yeah, I'd like to, we might, after we listen to a couple of tracks, talk a little bit more about that community connection side of it and how important that is. I did want to ask, though, so we all know those people out there who believe that they're great at fixing things, and when it actually, they're better at deconstruction than construction.
That's me.
Pull it apart and it never goes back together. How do you make sure that you only get people who actually know what they're doing?
Look, I think, like with most things, people... Well, look, I mean, I always trust self-selection for the most part, but you can't totally. But I think it's like people... It's not a club, but I think the way we operate is people come in, and if you're interested, we say, well, come and do a session, you know, and hang out. And I think we rely on that. So people talk, whichever area people are doing stuff in, and they get a chance to sort of talk about what they've done. And you can sort of, I suppose, tell by people's background or their qualifications. But, I mean, the only area we're pretty fussy about is the electrical, just to make sure that's managed, and we have people qualified to test things. Everything we do, we test, and so we don't really, we assume people will have some background with that kind of work, but other things, you know, people, I mean, you know, we've got retired farmers, retired engineers, you know, people with all sorts of different backgrounds, really, tradespeople, boilermakers, plumbers, and of course, you know, people who've taught sewing and made things, and who are artists. So we've got a pretty broad range.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Now, are there particular hours that you're open?
At the moment, we're open 10 till 1, Thursdays and Saturdays. Yeah. And that depends on volunteers, but also... you know, it's been a big journey to go from nothing, basically, to where we are. So we are looking at expanding our hours now, going into the next sort of phase. So, but at the moment, 10 to 1, Thursdays and Saturdays.
All right. We might have a listen to a couple of tracks. We'll come back, and I'm very interested in that psychological side of it, and people who may be feeling alone at home, and the benefits that they get from being engaged in community. It's certainly something that, you know, I see the benefits here at Phoenix as well. So keen to chat about that, but we'll have a listen to a couple of tracks first. So Keith, you'll like this. We're going to go back a little bit to Dynamic Hypnotics.
Dynamic Hypnotics.
Phoenix FM, you're tuned into the Phatt. I nearly did it again, Keith. I nearly called
you. You nearly said live music.
I nearly did. I had to pull myself up. So we have Elsie here from the Bendigo Share and Repair Shed. We've been talking quite a bit this morning about the many things that, I must admit, I was quite surprised, Elsie, about how many different things that the shed is involved in. I think a lot of people around town would be, that you're into everything.
Well,
in a good way.
We are, yes. Yes.
So, yeah, all credit to what you're building there in Garsed Street. But I did mention before we put some music on, I wanted to talk about the importance of the building connections, and that it's not just about the sustainability side of it in getting things back out into the community that can be reused. There's actually people who are a part of this, and it's building those relationships within the people that they then feel supported. And you touched on earlier that there was someone who come to the shed and this sense of feeling like they were part of something, and you know, that they were giving back a little bit. How important is that role within the shed?
Look, I think it's important, and on a lot of levels. I mean, for some people, it's connection and meeting people, and it might be enough for them, like all they want to do is, like, once a month or once a week, come in and do that thing with people, and that's significant for them then in their life, either because they're doing it or because they have a chance to talk to people. For others, it's more intense. They want to be there all the time and really powering along to make the thing more effective and enjoy that aspect of being engaged in a way that's a big part of their life. And, in there, as I imagine it is with Phoenix FM. So, and I think particularly in the current sort of context, we've gone through a lot in the last few years with COVID and I think the climate change issue particularly, and then you look at what's happening in world terms globally and economically, and there's a lot of angst about it all, but also a sense of what can you do, and I think part of the culture that we've allowed to develop is this sense of, we're all victims to the media, even though a lot of the media is terrific, like local media, but people are being bombarded all the time and they can't do anything about it. And so I think a lot of people get to that point and it's like, where's the way out of here? And some of them then discover a community thing that they get involved in or have already always had it, and look to that for meaning, for purpose, for making sense of the world, but also doing something. And I think particularly about the climate change issue, that's a really important thing because we all know that the main causes of it are beyond our immediate control, but we can all be part of starting to change the culture and change what we do ourselves. And even if, one bottle got saved instead of being dumped somewhere, that has some meaning. So that's a really good, people can come in and do a shift at the shed and know that there's actual measurable contribution they've made to something for the planet, for the community, and that means a lot to people. But I think also people are seeking that companionship locally too, and the importance of mateship. We've always thought that's an important part of Australian society, and I think within community groups you see mateship operating as well.
Yeah, definitely. And a saying that I remember hearing was think global, act local, which means that your small steps locally do make a difference, because if everyone takes a small step, it all comes together.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's the sort of opportunity that shows in that. And interesting, just from the City of Greater Bendigo's magazine that came out, there was a recent edition. They were saying with the change to the green collection, so organics waste collection is up 54%, and the standard rubbish waste, which normally goes to landfill, down 33%. So by providing the opportunities, and I know that I think now, if I have things, I live out towards Ironbark, and I'm always thinking, do I throw this out, or actually I think the Eaglehawk recycling people would actually take this anyway.
Yeah. And
it's actually good. It's actually a good experience going into the landfill now, and you first get diverted into the little shed and they check the things and they sort things through, rather than the old days when you just take it and dump it in one spot. And also that's a sort of role, obviously, that the share and repair shed plays, in that, you're looking at those sort of things as well, things that people would think, it doesn't work, I'll throw it out.
Yeah.
Rather than saying, it doesn't work, but I think it can be fixed and it's still useful.
Yes, and I think one of the things we often try to gently pick people up on is, people say, oh, well, it'd be cheaper to replace it. It's not cheaper to the planet,
No.
And, in the long term, it's not going to be cheaper to any of us, because if we just keep, extracting things, making them into things and then dumping them, it's pretty obvious you can't keep doing that forever, and this idea we can. So that sort of notion of choosing to recycle or repair, and then I think a lot of people just don't know how or where, and even though there's a lot of work done by council, and Eaglehawk Eco Recycle's been there since 1994, which was, great vision by people like Peter Cox and Leon Scott, and we've had that facility and that idea in Bendigo for a very long time. So we feel we're part of that movement too, that it's been around a long time and working together. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions. People think they've got to pay to have things recycled.
Yeah.
Most of it you don't, as you know, all the electrical stuff you can take out there, and polystyrene, all sorts of things. It's not. There's a couple of things like mattresses and that they have to pay to have them recycled, so they might cost money. But most things you'd want to take out there, it's free. So.
Absolutely.
You did mention before, I wanted to come back to you on this, you mentioned about the blister packs on the...
Yeah.
Do you mean the medicine?
Yes.
Yeah. Because I did watch something, Craig Rucastle, and saw his show where he talked about that. I've been saving them ever since, so I've got them all piled up on top of the fridge, but have never known where to take them. And
well, there you go.
Yeah, my partner was like, "What are you actually going to ever do with those?" And I'm going to find somewhere, and you've come to us.
There are a couple of pharmacy organisations that recycle them as well. So we have a bag hanging in our pantry where all the blister packs go into, and we make sure we do. But we know now that you also do it through the Share and Repair shed.
Yes, and a lot of the pharmacists are doing it, and we've sort of also been working with Bendigo Sustainability Group, cooperating. There's a few different places starting to pick them up, and then we collectively send them on, because often you've got to pay for the people that do the processing. But, I think it's a really good example of, there's a couple of international movements that are sort of underpinning what we do, and one of them's the Right to Repair movement, that we've really got to put pressure back on the construction of the people that are making goods, that they allow things to be fixed and stop this stuff where they're actually, being created to sort of be obsolete within a certain amount of time. But I think the other one in the circular economy is putting the onus back on whoever creates all that rubbish to have some role in doing something with it. I often think that about fast food and, all of the rubbish that's generated with all that food stuff that people do, and then that really the people making profit out of that should have some responsibility for doing something about it. And so the circular economy idea too, if you've got a washing machine and it does get to the point where it can't be used anymore, there should be some system where the manufacturers take it back and they recycle it, because they make all the profit out of making them and selling them, and then the community gets stuck with the job, and council and government, of trying to do something about it. So there is a big push internationally to say, and so with the blister packs, if drug companies are using that way of promoting their product, selling their product, that they take responsibility for recycling. So it's good to sort of get people thinking about that, to go back to where they get something from and say, can I bring this back, when it's rubbish.
Yes, and it's amazing how some ideas do take hold. I remember the controversy at first when supermarkets would no longer have single-use plastic bags, and everyone said, "Oh no, I've got to take my." It's so easy now. It's second nature for us to take. We have a bag full of shopping bags that we take to the supermarket with us when we go shopping. It's not that hard. It wasn't. Some people blow it up into something that's hard work. But it's just, you can do it.
I did hear recently in some chat at the council that one of the biggest things that they got complaints about was that transition to the green waste. They got phenomenal amount of complaints, but the outcome has been fantastic. The numbers you told us about before, and that people have actually, once they got past that initial shock, they're like, actually, this isn't that bad. We can do this.
Absolutely. And I definitely find my red bin is nowhere near full every fortnight now.
No, the only thing that worries me about that when I hear the green waste is growing is how much of that is food waste. Because food waste is our biggest waste problem, and it's huge. So because we say green waste, I think a lot of us think they're sort of weeds and garden things, but I think in actual fact most of it is food. So we really need people to sort of get more mindful about because it's so easy. Stuff is so cheap, and people buy more than they need, and then they don't know what to do with it when it's sort of, people are not cooking as much or whatever. Because a lot of food is wasted, and that's really bad.
And a lot of it too is also the way they are packaged and sold, as you say. Sometimes they actually make it so you have to buy too much.
Yeah.
Because you can't
that's right.
we're a two-person household, and so at times it's hard, to buy something which is the right size for two people, rather than buying something for family size or super bulk size or things like that. And
that's the beauty of the markets, where you can just get what you need. And
you pick exactly what
Let's
you need.
tell a little quick funny anecdote in regards to that.
Not a funny one.
Many years ago, lived in Shepparton, and I had a mate who he'd just come out of living with his mum and dad in Melbourne, and he'd come up to Shepparton. We're doing the same job up there. Anyway, he's got very excited because there's SPC and the like over in Shepparton. So he's gone down to, they have their shop open where you can buy bulk of everything. He's come home with about 6 of the big beetroot tins, like the biggest tins, the industrial size tins, and he was so excited about all this beetroot. Well, we were stuck eating beetroot for weeks. Every time he was like, "Have you had some beetroot?" Like, we just had to keep eating. He bought way more than he needed.
It sounds like he was a bit ambitious about that.
Yeah.
But I mean, the opportunity you have there once again at the shed around food, around the fact that people who might grow their own, they can bring surplus in.
Yeah, and it's been very effective. It's there's even at the moment citrus is big, but but it does mean for a lot of people, because like the cost of buying a lot of those things is so high, and with lemons and things, and yet really probably in Bendigo, if we kept doing what we're doing, there's enough growing on trees to be sharing with each other without people having to buy them at all. So and we're interested in the future of getting a bit more organised about that aspect of it, how we can get organised to be picking things collectively, and then an opportunity to share. So, and a lot of people, people have always grown their own food, but I think that movement's growing amongst younger people now too, with families, particularly because they're concerned about the chemicals in things, and also the cost of living. It's a lot cheaper once you get into the habit of growing your own with a lot of vegetables and things.
Absolutely.
We might have a listen to a track. I'm going to need to fit some sponsors in before the end of the hour, but that's going to break it up a little bit. When we come back, we touched on a topic off air in regards to your interest in music and the creative side of things. So we might talk about that when we come back. But first, we're going to hear an absolute classic from Australian band Goanna. The song's called Razor's Edge. You're listening to The Phatt on Phoenix FM, the voice of your community. Phoenix FM, you're tuned into The Phatt. That was a cracking song by Goanna and Razor's Edge.
Yeah.
Yes. Keith, you have quite a story about it. We might save it till next time that we talk about Goanna, because Elsie let loose a little bit of a interest before, and I wanted to delve into this a little bit regarding music. You dropped in up a couple of names earlier, which indicated to me that you know quite a bit about music, and you're quite interested in the scene. What's the background there?
Well, I am interested in music. I was, one of those people who learnt to play the piano, and had a bit of a basic sort of training in it, but and just love music. Not many people who don't like music, but it's finding what they like. And I suppose it really, I believe it's a fundamental part of ourselves as humans, sound, and particularly music. And as an art form, music is doing things on all sorts of levels, and so it's very important for the body, but it's social, all those sorts of things. And out of it, people, it's not just a matter of listening to the celebrity kind of music, because over the years, many of us, I suppose, would think we've known people who are so good at music and so good at art, but they don't become commercial. But and that's part of our community, and building community is acknowledging that we've got great musicians locally and, great artists in all sorts of different areas. And I think the idea of bringing them together, so just to get back to the shed, which is what I'm supposed to be here for, but I suppose we see that it's not just, we don't want to just keep it, we want it to be a place where it works for community.
Yeah.
And so we see ourselves being open to doing, connecting in with other groups that want to do things like music, but, of course, theming it then to attract people to learn a bit about recycling and about those sorts of things. And I think that's the role music can play is, getting people to want to come together, and then other things can happen, that you're doing. So
agree so much with that.
Reminds me another saying, but there was a fellow I met years ago called Charles Landry who he works internationally on building cities, and he worked with Barcelona on their reinvention and that. And Charles said to me, I was doing work in community development over in Perth, and he said, it's not about, we talk about being the best city in the world. He said, what we don't talk enough about is being the best city for the world. And that can translate down to that sort of thing, an organisation level or a community group level. It's not about being the best group in the community, it's best for the community, and exactly what you're talking about with the share and repair shed.
Yeah, and I think that the two things go together. I think when you were talking about the music scene before and what you're doing with live music stuff on a Saturday and how people are really getting interested, and it's just about local, but then someone in Melbourne might have heard of, the Phoenix Phantoms, and I think that's really the way it's sort of like you become the irresistible alternative, it's sometimes called. So you do what works for the few of you that are doing it, and, but obviously not just for yourself, you're doing it for others to be able to be part of it, and it grows, and if it gets enough momentum, well, other people will be interested, but you don't do it to get the audience, you do it so it's good for the people who are going to use it. And so I think that's an important thing, particularly in rural regional living, that we realise that if all it does is, mean something for a few hundred people in our own area, that's enough. That's all we need to do. We don't have to become, sort of get 4 million likes on Facebook. I mean, and I think that thing about fame's interesting anyway. I always say to people, like, what does it mean if people who don't know you think you're terrific? I don't actually get it. I think that the sense, of course, we all like in our own worlds and with our friends in community, people go, oh, you're doing a good job with that, or you like recognition. But that idea of fame, I mean, it's meaningless because you don't know them, they don't know you.
No.
And I think locally, and we've built that. I mean, there's so many great people around Bendigo who've been doing stuff for years, and they're known because of what they do in Bendigo for each other, and that's what we want,
Yeah, I think there's a real opportunity to bring a lot of those organisations together, and music can be a bit of a connector with that.
Absolutely.
Like the people in relation to garden and the work that Amy Chapman's doing at the moment, some of the performances she's putting on, is building that connection with the people who are doing the work in our parks and gardens and the like. And
it's fantastic.
It's building that real sense of community. Rather than everyone just in their silos. I keep harping on about it, like an old record.
We do. Thank you very much, Elsie, for your time today.
Thank
you, so
Keith
freely
and
of that,
Brett.
And great chat.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And
Thank
people
you.
can find out more about Share and Repair Shed via Facebook or
Facebook, Bendigo Share and Repair Shed, but also